Jenny Cockell was born in England in 1953. There was usually a lot of tension in her house because her parents were not getting along. Jenny was an introvert child who found it difficult to communicate with others about what's going on at home. Nevertheless, she had clear memories of 4 of her past lives, from which she was constantly reliving various scenes. Most of her past memories consisted of a mother with 8 children who devoted all her time caring for them. She knew she was called Mary, and that she herself had been that mother. She saw herself walking through the village and going to the market. She saw her simple house from the outside and frequently from inside too. It was less than 1 kilometer from the village center and was surrounded by fields and trees. There was also a stream nearby. On the other side of the road were the moors. She knew from the beginning that this country she remembered was Ireland. Before we continue, if you have not done so, remember to subscribe, comment, and turn on notifications so that you can continue receiving more videos like this. Her husband at the time often worked outside the house while she dedicated herself completely to raising her children. She saw herself sewing, cooking, and tidying up. She could see each of her children, clearly expressing their individual characters and ways of being. She found it hard to remember their names, or even the name of the village. There were several scenes from that life that were crystal clear. In one of these, she saw herself wrapped in a long shawl, standing by a wooden stile. It was dusk, and she was waiting for a boat to come in. Other times, she saw that her boys had set a trap and had found a rabbit in it the following morning. They were pleased to have caught something, but she was unhappy about them having set the trap. Thankfully, she could see the rabbit was still alive and was being set free. When Jenny was 4 years old, she confided something from her past lives to her mother. To Jenny, the events from the past were real, and she believed that she had really lived them. Her mother did not belittle her for telling her these things. She carefully listened to her, but as a strict Catholic, she put these things down to wishful thinking rather than the truth. Jenny was very disappointed with her mother's attitude, and from then on she kept all her memories of her past lives to herself. Nevertheless, she held to what she knew to be the truth. She even saw scenes from her past lives in her dreams. One of these dreams was a terrible nightmare, which she had quite frequently. It was the experience of Mary's death at the age of 35 years. She saw herself in a hospital room with a high ceiling. She was aware of having a fever and was struggling to breathe. What she missed most was the contact with her children, which she was not permitted. Only her husband was allowed to visit her. Somehow she was aware of her imminent death. She had no fear of death, but felt very angry, because letting go into the inevitable involved withdrawing from her children. They were her only concern. Then she saw herself outside of her body, looking at her husband from above, who was sitting by her bedside. At that point, she regularly woke up from her nightmare, still feeling angry at fate for leaving those children motherless. Most of her past memories occurred during the day. When she was older, she drew some of the scenes from her memories, including the little house in which she had lived as Mary. She made maps of the village and all the roads and footpaths she could remember. She knew that the village was not far from her house and was situated northeast of Dublin. One day she opened her school atlas and looked at maps of Ireland. She found a village called Malahide situated northeast of Dublin. The roads leading to it coincided exactly with the ones she had drawn on her map. At the age of 25, she underwent her first regression under hypnosis. Her memories of her past lives were still clear at this time, especially her life as Mary. Her nightmare about her death had not surfaced for years. During regression, she relived every detail from her past life, including her own death. She knew that she had had a stillbirth in one of the last years of that life, and that the doctors had warned her of the risks involved if she were to become pregnant again. She did not heed this warning and was soon expecting again. She died in 1932 after giving birth to a healthy girl whom she had named Elizabeth. She also remembered several of her children's names during regression, her oldest daughter having been called Mary after her. At the age of 27, she managed to buy a local map of Malahide, comparing this map to the one she had drawn years ago, and was surprised to find that she had put all of the main roads and important buildings in the right places. Jenny was married by now with 2 children of her own. Her husband was very understanding about her need to find out more about her past life as Mary. In 1989, she traveled to Ireland to visit Malahide. When she arrived there, she was shocked to see how much had changed in the last 56 years. New buildings and flats had sprung up everywhere. Where she remembered seeing a courtyard with 2 gates leading into it, there was now a supermarket. She found it difficult to imagine what it used to look like based on her memories of the past. Finally, she found the path that led to her old house, but when she got there, she only found an old ruin, and the nearby stream had become a mere trickle in a ditch. It was only after a second visit to Malahide that she was certain that this ruin really was the house from her past life. While walking about in it, memories and feelings came flooding back to her. After having talked to people in the neighborhood, she discovered that a John Sutton, his wife Mary, and their children had once lived in that house. She then wrote several letters to various authorities, hoping to find some documents about the Sutton family. She also tried to find them in the registers of christenings and deaths, and wrote to all the Suttons she could find in the telephone book. She put advertisements in the local paper to find people who could give her more information about the Sutton family. She managed to find out that she was born in 1897 and died during childbirth in 1932, which she already knew from her own memories and through regression therapy. She found 6 of her children's names and birth dates in the register of christenings. Jeffrey Sutton had been born in 1923, followed by his siblings Philomena, Christopher, Francis, Bridget, and finally Elizabeth. However, these were only 6 of her children, and she was sure she had 8. Only later did she find out that she really did have 8 children, for the 2 that were not registered in that particular register of christenings had in fact been christened in another church. Their names were Sonny and Mary. She had the good fortune of getting hold of the address of her oldest son Sonny, who was living in England at that time. In 1990, Jenny was introduced to a journalist working for television. He was very interested in her efforts to find her past family. Jenny did not agree with all this becoming public news at this early stage, but she was aware of the benefits she could reap by cooperating with them, so she agreed. Before introducing Jenny to Sonny, the journalist wanted to film an interview with him, asking him questions about his life in general, his youth in Ireland, and especially about life at home as a child. They thought it best that the 71-year-old was not told the true reason for this interview. Jenny had specifically asked the journalists not to mention that she was his mother, so as not to put him off. Even so, Jenny phoned Sonny Sutton just before the interview. She told him about the dreams she has been having in which a woman named Mary Sutton tells her about her life in Ireland, giving her detailed pictures. She went on to describe the house in which Mary had spent her childhood from both outside and inside. Mr. Sutton confirmed that all her statements were true. A date for their meeting was then arranged for the 23rd of September, 1990 at his house. Jenny's husband and her 2 children accompanied her to Leeds, as they were keen to find out whether Jenny had really been Sonny's mother in the past. If both their statements were the same, they would have definite proof that Jenny had not been fantasizing, and her memories of a life in Ireland as a child were the truth. Her reincarnation experiences would then be proven beyond any doubt. Even though Sonny Sutton was an elderly man by now, Jenny immediately recognized him by his mannerisms. She told him about her life in Ireland, and Mr. Sutton was amazed and had to agree that everything she said was the truth. The journalist who interviewed Mr. Sutton had asked him to draw an exact plan of the house in Malahide, from both inside and out. When Jenny showed him her sketches, which she had made many years ago when she was a young girl, he compared them with his own. To their amazement, they were extremely alike. She kept saying to him, "Look at that, it's exactly the same as mine." She then described the property and the neighboring houses in detail. Sonny was amazed at the accuracy of her knowledge about his childhood. Finally, they talked about individual members of their family, and Jenny was able to describe them correctly, even down to their individual character traits. Then she described his mother and told him exactly what clothes she used to wear. Sonny even verified Jenny's claim that she wore her hair in a bun. Then the conversation focused on Mary's father, who had been a station master in charge of a level crossing, where there was a signal box next to the crossing in which he often spent the night. Strangely enough, Jenny could not remember much about her husband from that life. She was happy to be able to discover more about him from Sonny. She did remember him building roofs, and later going off to be a soldier in the First World War. The relationship between him and his wife could not have been very good, since John Sutton spent very little time at home. His son, who said that his father became an alcoholic and often gave him severe beatings, confirmed this. Jenny told him about the trap his mother had talked about, in which the children had caught a rabbit. This incident was deeply etched in his memory, and he was able to fill her in on the details. He couldn't understand how this woman sitting opposite him, who was a total stranger, could know all these things. Jenny then asked him what his mother could have meant when giving her images of a woman standing on a wooden stile at dusk, waiting for a boat to come in. Mr. Sutton explained to her that she had been waiting for him, for every evening he used to row back from a neighboring island in his boat. He was earning money there as a caddy. He earned 2 shillings and 6pence every day. He used to give his mother the 2 shillings and keep the 6pence for himself. Sonny could even remember the shawl his mother wore around her shoulders at the time. Sonny also confirmed that his mother had a stillbirth and had died in hospital in Dublin after giving birth to her youngest daughter. Her sons went to an orphanage and her daughters to schools belonging to the monastery. Jenny had absolutely no doubt that this really was her oldest son from her past life, in which she had been Mary Sutton. Then she told Sonny that it was she herself who had been his mother. It took him some time to absorb this information. He finally accepted her for who she claimed to be, and they formed a lasting bond between them. With Sonny's help and her own investigations, she was able to trace 5 of her 7 children who are still alive. In 1993, there was a big family reunion with all of Mary Sutton's, now Jenny Cockell, 5 children. For the 3 brothers, not counting their brother Jeffrey, who had died in 1985, this was their first meeting in a very long time. These brothers considered their sisters Phyllis, Philomena, and Betty Elizabeth lost or dead, since they had not been in contact with them for over 60 years. Their mother from a past life, who looked more like one of their daughters in age, had brought them all together again, apart from the 2 sisters who could not be traced. The television film crew was there to document this extraordinary reunion so that it could be shown to their viewers. Sonny had asked his sisters what they thought about Jenny being their mother from a past life. They said that they could not accept reincarnation as a fact, since their Catholic Church did not teach this. Instead, they chose to believe that their mother was working through Jenny from above in order to bring all the family members, who were still alive, together again. What do you make of this successful search for children from another lifetime? Do you consider this account convincing evidence that reincarnation exists? It even gives strict religious believers something to think about. The conflict with the church exists, because the church in the first 500 years after Christ taught the people about reincarnation. The earliest famous church preacher was Origen. Even Jesus in Matthew, chapter 11, verse 14 of the Bible, acknowledged reincarnation by recognizing John the Baptist as the reincarnation of Elijah. If you enjoyed this video and you have not done so, remember to like, subscribe, comment, and turn on notifications so that you can continue receiving more videos like this.